Welcome to the fourth video in our Connect Me series, Celebrate Your Street Together, with me, Alistair Ganley, and Jojo Spinks. So today we're looking at digging up the history. This is part one, and we're looking at maps. So how is it best to view tithe maps online?
Yes, so I've been doing a lot of tithe work because it's great tithe maps are particularly good at looking at what the fields were that most of our houses are built on, because that's something we all know, isn't it? Oh yeah, well, it was all fields. I remember when it was all fields, but of course fields belonged to someone. Fields may have been rented out and worked by someone else, and fields created a particular type of crop, and so had a particular type of landscape context and animals and vegetation. So it's not just fields. There's actually a lot of information there, and you'll find that information in your early Victorian tithe maps. But there's a little trick that I think I've established, that a better way to look at your tithe map. So I'm going to going to share the screen again. Bear with me 1 second. Just going to show an example of a tithe map. So this shows you what a tithe map, an early Victorian tithe map, looks like. So basically they mapped the entire country, they delineated the fields, and then they gave them a code. And so that code number, as in this case we can see this is 1346, relates to a tithe apportionment. And so that essentially is a list of all that information that I was talking about. So yes, it was fields, but there's a lot of information inside that field. Who was the landowner? So the landowner might be someone like Lord Baltimore, who owned huge amounts of Exeter, for instance. Or it might be, one small farmer who's been there since, his family's been there since early medieval period. So the tithe apportionment will tell you that. What the one little trick that I have found, though, is that it's really useful to look at the tithe map using the historic environment tool that's in your pack. So rather than going in the website to the Devon tithe maps directly, use the historic environment tool. The advantage of that is that even if you want to escape off the side of your tithe map into the next tithe map, the historic environment tool will automatically go there. It's got them all up at the same time. If you go through the Devon tithe map route, you'll only be able to look at one at a time. These tend to be much easier to navigate. But I think I'm right in saying, even though they're easier to navigate and easier to see, you can't see the apportionments here. So once you've got your apportionment number and been able to navigate freely inside the historic environment viewer, I would then come back to the Devon Records Office and look up the apportionment there. And then the apportionment will give you all of those details. So you can see 1346. If you go back to the tithe apportionment, it will give you all of the details that relate to 1346. And the great thing is you can download them as spreadsheets. So you can just search for 1346 and it will go straight to the record.
So when you talk about apportionment, is that to do with who's responsible for what, or does it have other significance?
Basically, it's a list of details that relate to that patch of land.
Right.
So where your house is, you'll be able to look at that number, the field that sat under your house. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to go to the apportionment, and it will tell you exactly who owned that patch of land. And what could be really useful there is that, were they a big landowner? If they were a big landowner, chances are they had an estate. Chances are they had a manor of some sort, a large house in your area. So that can be great fun to find out. For instance, my house in Hevertree, I discovered it was owned by Lord Baltimore, but farmed by people who had farmed in the Roux family, who farmed for 500-600 years in the area, and actually owned the house at the base of Bertrand Hill that we were invited into, in fact, as in one of our projects to look at that house. So it was a wonderful bit of sort of connection that we found. So your tithe apportionment will give you that kind of detail, and it will tell you who owned it, what else they owned, and also who farmed it. So it will give you the name that you can then do further research on, and what kind of pasture or arable farming or any other land use that it was put to.
Thank you.